And that needs to be taken into consideration when people talk about gun control, and they talk about psychological problems that people have, all sorts of psychological disorders that people have, medicines that people are on. A lot of these people are on disassociatives, or they're on psychotropic medicine. Like, is that causing them to be able to do that? Is it just because they're fucked up already and that's why they're on this medication? If you look at the number of school shooters and mass shooters that are on psychiatric medication, it's astounding.
But that's usually not talked about in those terms, right?
Right.
It's talked about sort of in Buffalo. It's talked about the racial aspect of it. So it's a hate crime.
Right.
And then here.
Hello? What? Bro, these motherfuckers are literally like saying loudly and proudly that they're doing this crime for a white supremacist purpose. What more can someone who engages in a hate crime while simultaneously saying, I'm doing a hate crime because I hate this, what more can they do for these fucking dumbasses to be like, okay, maybe this is a hate crime?
Here in Texas, it's talked about, they politicize it immediately about gun control.
Yeah.
And so it seems like there's an over-the-top artificial drama conjured up by the press to get more attention versus sort of properly putting this thing in its context. And I think any one event deserves the press it gets, but it's worthwhile.
This is like, dude, why do people think this guy's smart? Because he was like, he is in his field, strictly in his field. Yeah, he might be like very good in AI or some shit, right? A lot of people often look at that and think, oh, that translates to everything else. And to those people, I bring up the Ben Carson example, right? Like, I think most people are not going to look to Ben Carson and be like, well, that's a brilliant person, clearly, when he sometimes unironically forgets to fucking breathe, okay? But he is actually very fucking good when it comes to being a neurosurgeon. Technical knowledge does not equal logic. That's the difference with him. No, but you can also be a logical person too, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have like good fucking assessment and good takes on issues that pertain to, I guess, politics.
Thinking about the fact that, not the fact, but I think every coverage increases the chance of it happening again.
Yeah, it does.
Because it plants that idea into the minds of young people that this is, it sucks being young. It sucks being human, first of all. You go, especially drugs, depression, life can be a struggle. And nobody gives a fuck. You can feel like nobody gives a fuck about you. You can feel angry. You can feel lost and hopeless and all those kinds of things. And that can manifest itself in wanting to be heard by the world.
Yeah.
So you can understand that sort of imperative. And if the press tells you that this is one way to be heard, it just, I think that a different message is better. First of all, a message that all of us struggle, that life can be hard. And then a message of health, of sort of this too shall pass, of challenging yourself, of being optimistic about the future, of trying to grow, trying to survive, whatever the hell you're feeling, going through, trying to survive that.
I don't know how he started his podcast and stuff. I don't know how he started his podcast. I don't really know too much about him and his background. But what I do see here is basically the same shit that I see from a lot of Joe Rogan's like guests that want to build like a big career, a media career. But what he's doing right now is just like basic fucking self-help for rudderless men, stating like very obvious things, even though like the statement is also accompanied by it seems like a intentional deflection away from and a weird hand waving away from like the actual root cause, or at least one of the fucking important factors in the subject matter, which is guns, how easily accessible guns are. If you turn around in the aftermath of a massacre like this and say, the media is motivated to turn this conversation into a gun violence conversation because they're motivated by clicks or something like that, I don't really fucking care if you're accompanying that statement with like a whole bunch of, self-help bullshit or preaching about fucking love and, you know, all this other good stuff, because you're literally, you did the first part already. Like the second part is just to build like build a fan base and develop good nature and charitability. But the first part's the part that I don't like. You go on Joe Rogan, you say some fucking self-help shit, you talk about men as like, you know, you talk about the truths about men experiencing struggles in society and not having, not being heard. Some of those are real sentiments being expressed, okay? And then you fucking turn around and like pad the deck with a bunch of right-wing commentary and success.
I just feel like the press wants the drama of the shooting. They're hungry for that drama.
Yeah.
I see that with Ukraine. And what worries me about Ukraine as well is that the press will move on from the war in Ukraine. And then the war will still be going on. And they will no longer care.
What is the, like, when you're
I don't
dealing
disagree
with
with
a
this take.
school shooter type situation?
The point that he is making about the media and its interest, jumping from point to point, that's fine. That's true. But you can't use the inadequate media response or the fucking monsters that work in mainstream media as a way to basically solidify an underlying right-wing ideology or an underlying right-wing opinion, a reactionary opinion, such as guns are not responsible in any capacity, and this last atrocity that took place. Especially if you're like empirically driven, you're like a science guy. I mean, look at the fucking factors, brother. All these other countries have mental health problems as well. All these other countries have fucking video games. All these other countries have everything else. The only thing that these countries don't have, or the only thing that these countries differ from us, we have guns readily available, broadly and easily available weapons. All these other countries that have high rates of gun ownership in comparison to European nations, for example, like Switzerland, as one of the chatters pointed out, do not have nearly the same rate of gun violence, and certainly not mass shootings. And that is because they have regulation. That is the fundamental difference. New Zealand, like I mentioned, 5 million people, 1.5 million guns in circulation, obviously nowhere near the same rate as America, where America has 120% more guns for 100% of the people. Obviously, America has like an incredible, an incredible number of guns in circulation. But in a place like New Zealand, if you want to get a gun, you get 3 character references. Same in Canada. If you want to get a gun, you need character references to vouch for you, and also a psyche valve before you're able to get one.
Like, what is the alternative? Like, how else would you address it? You know, we want to find out what's wrong with this kid, right? He's dead, so you can't interview him. It's like, what caused it? Will we get an understanding of it? Do you hold the parents responsible? Like, what if you find out the parents were horribly abusive? Or what if you find out this is the product of schizophrenia, bullying in school? Like, what do you, like, how does one address it? I wrote this thing once that I said this country has a mental health problem disguised as a gun problem. And that's what it is. It's there's so many guns. There's more guns than there are people. It's not I don't think it's a gun situation. And I don't think you can change the fact that and I don't think it's wise to take the guns away from the people and leave all the power to the
Dude, it was so fucking brain dead. He literally mentioned the problem. Because Joe Rogan's not a professional politician, right? He's just a dumb guy who unfortunately assumes he's a smart guy. And what I fail to recognize in all of this is that, well, how do they fucking get captivated by right-wing commentary so quickly and so easily to like repeat it? You know what I mean? You're literally just repeating fucking the right-wing deflection. Oh, this country has a mental health problem. Like, yeah, it's true. Except so do other countries. Why the fuck do they not have the same rate of mass shootings and gun violence and gun deaths caused by, easily accessible, unregulated flow of a fuckload of weapons? Why?
government? We see how they are even with an armed populace. They still have a tendency towards totalitarianism.
Yeah, totally.
And the more increased power and control you have over people, the easier it is for them to do what they do. And there's a natural inclination when you're a person in power to try to hold more power and acquire more power. And there's never an inclination to give more power back to the people, to give more freedoms back to the people. Freedoms lost are rarely regained. And so the situation is should you be able to own a gun to defend yourself if you're a law-abiding citizen and you know that the police are horribly understaffed and you know that crime and violence are...
The police are not horribly understaffed. They are incompetent, though. And part of their incompetence comes from bootlickers like Joe, who offer them unconditional support and quite literally advocate against accountability. That's the reason why they think they can get away with just like murdering people that they shouldn't be murdering and not murdering the people that they should be murdering. They've never been understaffed. They've never had lower budgets. No one got defunded.
Should you be able to own a gun to defend yourself if you're a law-abiding citizen and you know that the police are horribly understaffed and you know that crime and violence are real things? And I personally know people who have been robbed. I know people who have had home invasions. I know people that have been in gunfights. What should we do? Should you leave these people unarmed and to be at the mercy of a criminal? Or what should we do? Should we red flag any kid who writes an awful poem or draw something fucked up on his notebook?
Why are you going to like insane extreme examples, dude? Like a full nationwide gun ban is never going to happen. It's just not going to happen. No one is even looking for that. I mean, there are people who want it, but like that's never going to happen. So why are you attacking that point? And red flag laws are accompanied by mental assessments, dude. Like psychiatric evaluations. And even then, it's probably not going to happen either, even though it should. It's not like, oh, dude, you wrote a fucking poem? Like, oh, guess you can't have a gun no more. That's not how that works.